Good evening, welcome to tonight's Hearthstone half hour. I'm Hammy, this is FailCraft Casts, hope you're all well and good. We're going to be laddering and learning back to Hearthstone this evening. So it is February 2015. In this episode we're going to be chatting a bit about the metagame, seeing what's going on, analysing our own deck a bit and what we're playing any decks that you fix my request. We're also going to be taking a little look at, of course, what everyone else is playing, seeing how the meta is, how the state of the ladder is at this point in time. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight on in. My deck, as you can see, is a control warrior. It's kind of Kit Kats for those who keep track of various different decks. This is a fairly standard control warrior. It's got Harrison Jones in for the weapons and removal of things against paladins and the hunters and all of the hunter weapons that are flying around at this moment in time. So interesting, we've got a paladin first up. I'm actually going to go for a full-on mulligan because in a control warrior like what we have here, I generally want to try and grab cool Taskmaster, Fury War Axe, maybe a Whirlwind. Give me those early game control options. So 2 executes is not fab, in fact that's a pretty tough start. Maybe it would have been a good idea to keep one of those Death Bites. Into an Acolyte of Pain, that's not splendid, but needs be. I can coin that out on turn 2 and then execute turn 3. In comes a Knife Juggler and we can see that our Paladin is going for the sort of muster for battle Paladin-y mid-range. So there are, in terms of ladder and what's going on in it right now, this is a good one to take a look at. So this Paladin that we're playing against, Hater Noble, T Farmer, who's joining us on stream. Good to have you. So this deck is kind of mid-rangey pally. You will see Muster for Battle, that summons the multiple Silverhand recruits, and also of course the one for Light Justice style weapon. So we've kind of had a pretty tough start for a control warrior. Reasons for this? Well, Coghammer, great weapon for our Paladin, giving a random friendly minion Divine Shield and Taunt. That makes it so slow. Makes it tough for us. I need to punch through that bubble, and actually any removal that I'm going to start doing here is going to be a tad on the expensive side. So I'm going to armor up to remove the stress, and execute to remove that Knife Juggler. It's really expensive, but I'm going to go for that too. So this pally, we're going to see them load up the table with Silverhand recruits. The mechs also come in, Piloted Shredder, Kalento, Strife Crow, other kind of. Those Hearthstone pros will very much like dropping this kind of thing. I can't deal with this right now because of the bubble. The Death Spite will let me deal with that next go. I'm going to start using the shield and slams that I have. Oh, what a 2-drop to get. We are certainly up against it to start with. I think did I throw back a Brawl in my first hand? Taking the pain, taking the hits. So, with another one of those down, this is all good. Opponent feeling so confident he's got 2 of those down now. Geddon will really help me out in a few turns' time. What it's not going to do is help me out right now. So I can armour up and remove nothing. Really the only play that I have here is throwing down the axe, actually taking 2. I just have to get rid of that bubble. Throwing this down next turn will give me more options. If I can survive till turn 7, I can maybe even out the table, but it looks as though I've been rushed out straight up. Really horrible start there. So no control from this control warrior. This Paladin by contrast has had a beautiful start. So straight down to rank 11 for us. That's painful. Brawl is the only thing that can save me. Let's see what we have. So a Whirlwind is going to remove some of this. I do have an Execute. I'm probably going to use the Execute on this. Okay, maybe I'm not quite done just yet. Let's work out the order of plays. So if I shield up and do a slam, I can actually heal myself by a reasonable amount. So I'm going to shield up and slam this to drop that down. I'm going to save the Execute for this one. Not going to be able to get rid of that. I think I can actually clear most of this table. So swinging in with my Death Bite. Remember, Death Bite, when it death rattles, does that 1 to all enemies. So strifing 2 of those out, get myself healed up to 18. That's nice. Liking that. again, it's expensive removal. I'm going to have to drop that. So, from what was quite a painful situation for us, we've actually managed to bring that back a little. And hello to Sparta joining us live in stream as well. So, we've got a whirlwind as well. Do you know what? And look at this. We have the comeback is on, guys. The comeback is on. Now, two options here. I can throw down a Geddon, but that's going to be hurting me. Or I can just go straight for the throat, which is a whirlwind and Harrison Jones. Now, that gives me a real acceleration of cards. The question is Harrison or is Geddon going to be more use to me at this point in time? I'm actually going to risk Geddon. Now, this is the whole reason that Harrison Jones is in here. When that Life's Justice comes down, or similar weapons, the sheer amount of durability will give me a great opportunity to steal some cards. You can see, swing that down to 2 now, not quite so many. There might be another muster for battle or similar. So we're hanging on in by the skin of our teeth. Now, because this piloted shredder has hit the table, I have a straight up trade I can make there. I need to I can either go for the kill, but my health is so low at this point in time. I'm probably going to go for this trade. I'm going to go straight for the face, hopefully, and you can see nicely Baron Geddon will strafe those off the table. Throwing down the Sludge Belcher will give me some protection, and I'm going to arm up. So we were really on the cusp of defeat just then, but the nice thing about Control Warrior is if you can survive to the mid game, then suddenly everything starts snowballing in your favour. Consecrate, painful, nasty, turn 5, there's many nasty 5 mana things that can drop. Down goes the Sludge Belcher, the 1/2 Slood, as we call it, by accident. It's a slime, but we called it a Slood yesterday. There we go, so we are stable-ish. However, Light's Justice now not going to give us any value from Harrison Jones. Harrison stays in hand for now. I think that Shield Slamming, a Whirlwind is not going to benefit me when it comes to that Acolyte of Pain, and throwing down Sylvanas is going to be very nice indeed. So, Sylvanas, not ideal to throw down in a situation like this. Remember, Sylvanas of course will rob a random enemy minion when she dies. Sylvanas goes into Sylvanas. So if I trade Sylvanas's, then I of course lose nothing, and my opponent, so if I trade, I think the order, if I Death Rattle, we both die, I take control of something and then she takes control of it back. That's very important because of what we have here. If I play anything that's too big or too nasty, then my opponent is effectively going to nick it. So I think I just have to make this trade. Now let's see, do I steal? I believe the order is I steal and then the opponent steals. There you go. So that's a net trade out and I'm okay. Very important I did that rather than playing a minion. The amount of times I've done silly things with Sylvanas, I can count in multiple different ways. So Alex Straza is really going to drop our opponent's health to finish. I still want table position. Dr. Boom is the way of doing that. Throw him down, spin it up. My opponent is most likely going to get 3 card draw out of that Acolyte of Pain. Druid saying, enjoyed the Heroes of the Storm videos. We do of course have a few Heroes of the Storm videos on youtube.com/FailCraft Casts. If you like MOBAs or heroes, go have a look. Trying to do a bit more of that as well. And there you go, 3 card draw from that Acolyte. I couldn't really destroy it. I don't want my opponent really to have this much in hand. Now I have a really nifty combo here that I'm going to save. My opponent could well still draw a muster for battle and Quartermaster. So Quartermaster buffs these to 3/3. How do I do this? Well, I can Whirlwind to remove that from the table. I think I'm actually going to go for that. And then I can sort of put down a bit more pressure. It's hard for my opponent as a paladin to do 16 in one turn, so I'm making a bit of a calculated risk there. A calculated play. I've got enough for a lethal next turn. He needs Tyrion Fordring, he needs tanks, he needs all of that kind of stuff. Muster for battle, as we anticipated, now very nicely done there. You can see the equality combined with that. It'd be if he sits that, and 2 cards removed. Amazing value there. So equality, you can see combining so well with Knife Juggler, immediately putting me in trouble. And if my opponent has the Quartermaster, then I'm going to be in a really nasty position next go. So I think I don't really have any option apart from to Harrison. Harrison now showing his value, removing that Knight's Justice, giving me 3 cards. I draw into a Brawl, and I think to just get the table firmly under control, I don't have a finishing or winning combination. I'm actually just going to go for a Brawl. It is stripping a lot of damage off my opponents. I'm hoping that, okay, I only left 1 Paladin, I can deal with that. We are, of course, now risking Tyrion. If Tyrion came down, I had a nice combo. The combo was make Tyrion 7 attack using Cruel Taskmaster, and then Big Game Hunter him, and then you Harrison Jones him to remove the Ashbringer. There's the Quartermaster that we were worried about. Only one of those can attack on this turn, but I'm still in a very dodgy position. So, can I remove these? I can, kind of. We have an axe, I could remove 1, but then I can't heal up back afterwards with Alex Straza, so risky there. These are all a little bit nasty in that they're just low enough health that I can't really do anything about them, so really, I think my only play here is to Alex Straza my own health back up, and see if we force my opponents to control this Alex. So this has been a good game. If we do go down, in terms of where it went wrong, I think we dealt with things most of the time. Generally, there goes the Big Game Hunter. We've already brawled once, only got that 1 brawl in the deck. True Sword Champ goes down. That looks like it's pretty much going to be it. You can see my hand is full of just about nothing here. We've seen Geddon already. We've seen Grommash already. The equalities have really been the MVP for our Paladin friend here. He's managed to remove 2 of my huge finishing minions for absolutely nothing. Sludge Belcher could keep me in the game just 1 more turn. Maybe it's worth giving it a go, seeing what we can do. I'm not going to be removing anything there, but we can see opponent will punch through this with 1, 2, 3, attack for 4. Yeah, my opponent's got this one. So shame. Welcome to PG, joining us live on stream. And what deck do you guys fancy next? If you're on YouTube, we are on Stream Live, twitch.tv/FailCraft Casts. Tend to go live 5 nights a week. Schedule bottom left there for you. Okay, so when you guys take a pick, we'll drop down to rank 11. And in terms of how we're going, how is our game going today? So, right, mid-range Pally. A nice little tool for you when you're laddering and learning is, of course, it might be worth trying Hearthstone Tracker. You can run it in the background on your PC, and it will keep a track of your various games. So, it looks like a Ramp Druid. What do people fancy? Well, people decide what they may fancy. I'm going to go for another Control Warrior, because that's what we've been going with. And then we can jump on some others. Ooh, okay, no, there's been a late call for Ramp Druid. Let's go for some Ramp. So Ramp Druid, I'm going to put up the deck list on the left. So that was a fairly standard Paladin. Those are quite, I'm not going to say flavour of the month. They're popular, they've had a bit of a renaissance with the last month or so. I believe this is the Ramp that I'm running, but we'll soon see if it's not. And in terms of my Control Warrior that you saw, there are other versions of that. That's a pretty standard version. Okay, looks like we've got Meg Mage. This is a really hard matchup. So this is a good point too. What is popular? I've got Scenarios back in there. Excellent. Scenarios is good. Wild Growth. Ooh. Okay. Right. I'm going to hang on to Wild Growth, but if we're playing a Mech Mage, really important with Mulligan, I need Wraths, I need Swipes, I need Keepers of the Grove, and I've got lots of Wild Growth, so I can ramp myself up in a couple of goes to a Druid of the Claw. The real question is, can this Mech Mage establish the table before me? Down goes a coin, out comes a Mad Scientist. That actually is not so bad, it buys me time. Keeper of the Grove, excellent, exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to be Wild Growthing because that means next turn I can silence this minion or do 2 damage and remove it. In fact, I might be quite happy with the silence. 2 mana, goes into a Fire Blast. If my opponent is playing mech, they've got a very slow start. They might of course be playing a Freeze Mage. There are Freeze Mages doing the rounds at this moment in time too. So I'm going to silence. I don't really want that secret coming out. With a full body of health, Keeper of the Grove, really key druid card. So while our opponent makes their next move, let's take a quick look at our ramp. The basic concept of ramp is get big stuff out as soon as possible and win with it. You have Innovate and Wild Growth, as you've just shown me use there, to try and push forward and get your big 4 mana and 5 mana cards out there. We've got things like Lower Tab, Druids of the Claw, Sludge Belchers, Sylvanas, you name it. Loads of big minions in the middle of the game there. Against what I was assuming this was an aggro deck. First things first, let's trade. It's not a duplicate. A lot of people at the moment are running Mirror Entity. So Mirror Entity I need to be careful of, because that is of course going to mean that my opponent summons whatever, one of whatever I'm trying to summon to. So I can get greedy, or I can throw down a minion. Now if I throw down either of those minions, it's going to cause me a few issues. So the real question is, do I try and get further ahead while my opponent's not doing anything? I'm going to try and get further ahead. Just attack to rule out a Frost Armor. Sparta says in stream chat, I use a lot of taunts in my Ramp Druid deck for the rush. That's absolutely a great idea. This deck has only got the 1 Ancient of War in, it's got Sonaris for the late game. That goes a Water Elemental, okay. So I'm still, you see now if I had, you can see that I'm on 7 mana compared to my opponent's 4. I've got Savage Roars, I've got multiple things. Would I rather my opponent had a Druid of the Claw or a Piloted Shredder? That's the question. I'm going to go with... you see, I'm just trying to, I know this is going to be a Mirror Entity. I don't have any small drops in this deck, that's the problem. That's why Mirror Entity is very good against Druid decks, because whatever I give my opponent, I'm going to go for that. There we go. My opponent's got a copy. However, what this will let me do is get rid of this Water Elemental. That was more of my concern. Because I've got nothing else on the table, I'm going to ramp into a Piloted Shredder. That gives me a trade for the Claw Druid next turn. And I think in terms of threats, I'm going to trade that off the table. This deck goes to the long game if we're not playing a Freeze Druid. Now, because we've seen Mirror Entity, we've not seen any mechs whatsoever. There are some I said Freeze Druid. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? A Freeze Mage. There are some Freeze Mages doing the rounds once more, which sort of nail you to the wall with freeze, 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 freeze. Out comes a mech. Big minions in the late game to cause you problems. I'm frozen. I can't attack, of course, for a turn. Could Force of Nature to get the table all clear. But my opponent will have nukes going around. Force of Nature and Savage Roar is, of course, my finisher. 3 Treants does 6. Savage Roar makes them then do 12 and then 14. So if I can get my opponent down to 14, Force of Nature, Savage Roar finishes the game for me. However, we're in a nasty position here. I don't have the taunts out that I wanted, as Sparta was referring to. You can see I've got Belchers here, I've got all kinds of things. They're just not here right now. So, actually, given that I think I have 2 Force of Natures, I'm going to spend one of them now. It's not really what I kind of wanted, but it will let me get the table under control. What we got? I've got a Neutron. My opponent's got a Light Well. Very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down. Now, of course, my opponent's going to get healed straight back up. At the start of my turn, restore 5. It's going to be a 50-50 as to whether my opponent's Light Well heals itself or heals the hero. It healed the hero. Very lucky for me. That means I can actually knock away that Light Well. So I took a bit of a coin flip there, a little bit of a gamble. Came off. Fire Blast, of course, removing my poor Claw Druid. He was so noble, he did so much. Second Piloted Shredder down from the opponent, and I'm quite happy with the Neutron. Second Force of Nature. If I can't finish my opponent, keeping the table under control is okay. If I can flood the table with minions, then a Savage Roar will still do something for me. In fact, I'm going to Savage Roar anyway. Reason for that, I can at least do some... Oh, hello, hang on. I'm going to control that with that. At least I can get the table under some sort of solid form of control. So, you can see my real problem here is card draw. There goes Dot Boom. Now that would have been a nice thing to get rid of. A Wrath will certainly help me out here. I'm going to have to deal 1 damage and draw, because what I really need is tanks. Now you can see I ramped so well, second innovate even, but where is my card draw? I just don't have any. And this is going to be causing me problems. So, for card draw in this deck, what do we actually have? Well, you've got the Ancient of Laws, that's what they're there for. If you ramp into those, they let you draw 3. Okay, so you can actually see that we've lost, very sadly. Frustrating. Problems there. Well, in terms of that game, we had such a good ramping start, but my opponent was actually playing more late game mage, presumably. And the problem there was that you can see we ramped up so quick, but we didn't have the card draw. Decisions I made, possible mistakes, the trade when it came to Druid of the Claw. Maybe just going for a Bear Druid and stabilising the table would have been a better play there. But I just did not draw into this chunky mid-game. You can see instead of grabbing Lertheb, Sludge Belchers and Sylvanas and all this kind of goodness, we were stuck in Savage Roar and Force of Nature territory. Now if I'd Force of Nature into a Savage Roar and done 14, I'm Juggernaut deck. Okay, right, so if this is a Control Warrior, we should probably be in good shape. So I'm happy to keep the Shade. In that case, I'm going to do a full-on mulligan, looking still for Innovates, Wild Growths, a Wrath and another Shade. Okay, at least that gives me something to get started with. Cool. Okay, so what can we do? Well, I can do some early game control. Getting out Shades is great. Shades are really awesome in this deck, and we can show you why in one turn's time. I can throw down 2 Shades, and they're just going to get larger and larger and larger and larger, and my opponent is going to have to brawl to get rid of them. So I don't actually see any problem with coining into a Shade on this guy. Force of Nature, so Wild Growth would put me to 3, that then drops me 4. I could coin into a Claw Druid next turn, but if I actually drop these, then I can throw down another Shade to go after that. I can throw down a Wild Growth. So again, there's a decision there to be made whether I went for Wild Growth to get myself into a Druid of the Claw next turn, or whether I get my Shades of Nex on the table early. Because they're stealth, opponent needs to be throwing down either Baron Geddon if he's playing a Control Warrior, looking like a Control Warrior so far. That then becomes a 3-3, and I can actually just get rid of that. So really, of course I'd love to draw the card. Of course I'd love to throw down a Shade of Nex. In fact, there was a reasonable argument there for me just throwing down a Shade of Nex. That would probably have been a better play. Reasons being, my opponent would have to damage his own Acolyte of Pain to get card draw out of it. But of course, warriors have so many ways they can damage their own minions. Now comes an Armor Smith, got 2 mana, probably see an armor up. So, coming into turn 4. And this is looking pretty solid. Again, Shade of Nex could hit the table. I could just get those nice and big. Start making the trades. Pretty much as soon as that comes out of stealth, we'll see some kind of trade pop out. So, given that I can Shade of Nex on Wild Growth, now's the time to get that removed. I do unstealth myself, and if my opponent has an Execute, we might well see that come out here. Alternatively, a Fury Winax. Armor up comes in, 3 mana left to go. Now, as a druid, as a ramping druid, I don't mind my opponent using executes early on. If a Shade of Nex gets executed, I'm not too concerned. Main reasons for that, I have lots of big nasty things I can play later in the game. We've got Boom there, we've got Ragnaros there, I've got Cenarius as a finisher as well. Remember, Cenarius can buff all of your minions on the table, or can create 2 tanking minions. Shield Maiden. Warrior is of course happiest when there's lots of armour involved, and I can actually just then throw this down and say, right, okay, I've got real table control here. I'm going to leave this to get bigger and bigger and nastier and nastier. So opponent's decision, probably want to try and remove Boom, Big Game Hunter, removing any minion with 7 attack or above for 3 mana, very common at the moment because Dr. Boom is so common. Shield Slam does a nice 6, not 7. Whirlwind potentially could be coming out, 4 mana left. Straight down the pipe, straight to the face with Shield Maiden. And out comes a Whirlwind. Okay, well that removes Boom very nicely. 2 Boom bots throw in their damage. 2 to the face actually, pretty painful. 5 damage to the face. Still keeps a Shield Maiden on the table. Now that is again quite happily out of nasty range. Druid of the Claw can go down. Useful for charging and finishing shenanigans. Question is, am I slamming to my opponent's face, or am I getting a really strong table position? I'm going to actually make the trade. I want that Shield Maiden away. In comes an Ooze. Not going to be huge amounts of help. So I'm going to get a Belcher on the table. Now remember, I've still got that Savage Roar and Force of Nature, and Savage Roar. That will give me a very nice opportunity of buffing everything by 2. So if I then fill the board with more minions, if I've got loads of minions on the board already, I don't need the Force of Nature. I can just play Savage Roar. Down comes a Black Knight, some straight up removal. Very nicely done there. 2 mana left, probably see an armour up. Sparta asks a great question, which we're going to run through in just a second. Force of Nature Roar gives me 14, remember? But then I have 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. I could actually do 28 damage this turn. Can I do more than that? That's the question. 9? I can have 9, and then I've got 1 mana left over. That takes me up to 3. Right, maths. Okay, so Force of Nature gives me 2/2 Treants. They all become 6/6, so it's 14 for 9 mana. I can then do 15, and then it's 20, 22, 25, 28. I think I just can't quite execute my opponent here, which is frustrating. So instead what I'm going to do is throw down Bear Druid. I'm going to sort of hold myself in here. That is of course going to get more powerful next turn. I'm going to make, actually leaving those on the table is probably a reasonable play. So I'm going to drop that. I think that was the way forward. Sparta asks, are there more decks with Warrior instead of Control, or is Control Warrior the best deck for Warrior, mate? I ask. Control Warrior is certainly pretty strong. Geddon, spoiling my plans. Going to kill his own minion, but kill most of mine too, and also puts my Shade of Naxxramas in jeopardy over the long run. Right, so swipe. I'll give some straight out removal. I'm going to, so Force of Nature and Roar. Let's work out, that's 14, 14, yep, that's 14, 20, 22. I can do 22 this turn. That alive, so if I can keep that alive, then that's the key thing. Okay, so a swipe to the face would get my opponent well within range. I need that under control. One to a minion card draw. And Sylvanas is pretty tasty as well. So there are other warrior decks you can play. There are a bunch of arms warriors. You can play some good fun weapons warriors, pirate warriors, and various things that use pirate weapons as a very aggressive deck. So you can charge in the early game with things. Ooh, in comes a Ragnaros. Pink to the face. No one likes that. Oh, and I've wasted the Shade of Naxxramas. Righty then. So Ancient of Law. That will let me restore health or draw a card. I'm going to draw 2 using that. Wild Growth will let me draw another card, or I can armor up and do some damage. I'm going to draw a card. I think I may have misplayed a bit in terms of the mid game here. There's probably a situation where I should have just burst that damage to the face and got my opponent to catch up. So you can play some nice arms warrior decks using things like Arcanite Reaper and a lot of the early game weapons. Can really sling in and do a lot of damage in the early game. You can pick up the pirates as well. Pirates go very well with weapons and warrior. So things like the deck hands and similar, all the kind of things that get buffed and do more damage, the more attack your weapon has, for example. So there are some good warrior decks you can play that aren't control, because I know control is of course quite expensive in terms of bits and bobs. Ooh, Force of Nature. Can I double Savage Roar? I think I can. Let's see what this, can I do 26? Right, so that's going to be 14. And then 16, 18, 20, 22. Again, I can do 22. It's this 22 number that's causing me so many problems. So many problems. Okay. So if my opponent has a Grommash and Cruel Taskmaster, that's going to be 12 damage plus 14. 4 will make that very, very painful indeed. So I'm threatening the Ragnaros now. If I suicide that into Rag, I take Rag. If Rag kills me, I take Rag. If he kills this and doesn't silence it, I take Rag. So he needs more minions, or they need more minions on the table. So why Sylvanas is a lovely tempo swinging card, and this is kind of the purpose of it in a bunch of decks. So my opponent immediately needs to think, oh well, what happens if he doesn't deal with my table, then I take his Ragnaros. If he does deal with my table, I might still take one of his minions. Sorry, I have just managed to... Okay, so in come the swings, that's going to be 4 and then 1 done. Basically throwing everything on the table, causing some pain. Now what am I going to steal? It's going to be a 50-50, and I take Ragnaros. Oh, what a result! In comes the damage, and Execute might come in now. Very nicely played by my opponent there, covering all the bases, but he's now down to 21. And the armour takes him up to 23. Remember, we can do 22 for the win, so we are so close here. Remember, Force of Nature is 14. Force of Nature and Savage Roar is 14 damage. And then another one of those makes it 16, 18, 20, 22. So I'm 1 damage off lethal. How frustrating. Druid of the Claw will certainly get me protected and ready. I need to block my opponent. I'm going to take the risk that he can't remove my Bear Druid, and then I'm going to throw down Keeper of the Grove as well. So if Moonfire, I'm going to Moonfire, because if Moonfire means that if he does go for a direct trade, then at least that's going to be removed. But of course, I think we've seen 2 executes from my opponent. There was one earlier in the game, wasn't there? Card counting at this point is very, very handy if you know what your opponent's still got left roughly to go. There's the direct trade. So can they remove this? If they can't, we win. Down goes a Loatheb, and that really screws with our plans. Can you see the problem that that's caused us now? Because I can't play any spells next turn. Still 1 damage off lethal. Can my opponent do 18? Or can I do 1 damage and prevent this? And the more we do, the more my opponent's health is creeping up and up and up. Big Game Hunter, useful for removing any big threats. That would have been useful against other things earlier. Oh, this is a tough position to be in. I'm going to offer my opponent trades, and I'm going to just trade straight for face. Remember, if my opponent stays on 22, we have a win. We've got cards in hand for the win, but we need my opponent to stay on 22 health. So really, once my opponent got, out comes a Whirlwind. Interesting, gives the card draw, of course. Have only 9 mana, so an Alexstrasza. We've already seen, here come the trades. I think we'll probably see a trade here as well. 2 cards in hand. Fury Warx comes down for the removal. That's going to take them down to 20. Oh, what is this? Up to 22. I'm hoping. The Sludge Belcher. Everything in our way. We've used both our Druids of the Keeper of the Groves, which would have allowed us to silence and get through that Belcher. So this is grinding out a match. Right, so the force of nature and raw would certainly let us make mincemeat of this table very, very fast. But my opponent, as a control warrior, has got stuff that will cause problems there. Okay, decision time. What else have we got left in our deck? We do have an Ancient of War, that will help us.
For the wilds.
I need to get through that tank. Oh, I'm armouring my opponent up. Armouring my opponent up for pain and great justice. Let's see if we can grab through this one. Operation Legend. Yeah, if we didn't have the Belcher or another Silence, and you can see the problem is, just look at all of the armour stacking up here now. The armour is the problem. Armouring up. Ooh, and see, look at all that pain. See, 24 now, and I think that this is arrivederci. Hey, if you're here, then that's all cool. Ragnaros is here, but basically you see my opponent's got lethal next go. So this is what we would have done. That's what would have given us the finish. 6, 12, 18, 22. But you can see we just couldn't get through our opponent's last minion here, so Control Warrior coming good in the end. I may as well do that. Oh, hi-yo. There you go. All of the armour in the world that my opponent could desire. There we go. Rest in pieces. So that was a good game, very close in the end of that Druid. We took it to the wire, but oh, circling back, rank 10 to rank 11. But had a good, fun game with that. So thank you very much for tuning in, for being on YouTube. That has been our half hour for this evening. We've taken a look at what the ladder looks like. We've had a look at a few common decks. We've played as them, we played against them. We've seen a whole cacophony of things in this little half hour. More of that to come. So thank you for tuning in. Hope that was interesting. Come and join us some other time. You can see us twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast, Monday through Friday, times in the bottom left. Also on youtube.com/FailCraft Casts with an S on the end as well. All of our old deck guides and intros in 2 minutes, and arenas and much more there. If you like Hearthstone, Heroes, kind of PC games in general, lots of Blizzard stuff though, come check it out. And then, last but not least, website failcraft.org, and you can find us on Twitter @FailCraftCasts. We'll always tweet there when we're streaming live. So thank you for tuning in. If you're live, don't go away. If you're on YouTube, hopefully see you